In this second session of Globe Connect, we're going to think about the question, who are we? What does it mean to be human? In the first session, we thought about who is God, but now we're going to turn our attention to think about ourselves. Now, I wonder, as a dad, do you think that I should tell my children that they're special? I've got 3 boys. Should I tell them they're special? I assume that you think that I should. It seems to be fairly standard practice in parenting today in our culture that regularly telling your children they're special is important. Okay, fine. On what basis do I tell my children that they're special? When one of them looks to me and says, "Oh, Dad, that's really nice that I'm special. What makes me special?" What do I say next? Now, I think here is where we begin to run into a few problems. What are the grounds of their specialness? You see, now the standard route seems to be, well, you're special because you're unique. But does that really make someone special? Listen, you're unique, just like everyone else. No, our value and our worth must come from more than just the fact that I'm unique and there's no one else like me. I think we need a better answer than that. But now we really begin to run into problems because we're beginning to get confused now. Because imagine a school corridor. And in one classroom, they're teaching science, and they're teaching that human beings have evolved by a random process of evolution, and we just happen to be here, and we came from some primordial soup, and we are highly evolved machines or creatures. My professor that I spoke about last week, Peter Atkins, he once said, the human race must realize how insignificant it is. We're just a bit of slime on a planet belonging to one sun. So that's what's being taught in the science lab, but just down the corridor, they're teaching PSHE, and they're desperately trying to help the children to have a sense of self-esteem and self-worth and self-value. And can you begin to see the problem? There's a confusion there. Where does the truth lie? On what basis are human beings valuable? That's the question I want us to consider. Now, something can have value in 2 ways. Something can either have value intrinsically. It can have value because of what it is, and it's good at doing what it does. Or something can have value extrinsically. It can receive its value not from itself, but from something outside of itself. Let me give you an example. So I have a potato peeler, and it's a very valuable potato peeler, because it is so good at peeling potatoes. I say, this is a good potato peeler. And I love my potato peeler. I don't care who made it. I don't care where it came from. I don't care what shop its value is that it's good at what it does. That's intrinsic value. But some things get their value differently. The street artist Banksy once set up a brilliant exhibition in New York. He painted up a load of canvases with some of his work, and then he asked this elderly gentleman to sit on one of the main streets of New York and sell those canvases for $25 a canvas. No one knew they were Banksy. They were just random canvases. And crowds of people walked by, and hardly anyone even bothered looking. A few people stopped, a couple of people bought them, one bloke bought 4 because he really liked them. Now, the weird thing is that those canvases were actually worth £25,000 each. But their value was not because the canvas in and of itself was valuable. It was because of who had painted it. So there are 2 ways that we can have value. And it's very important as humanity that we understand where our value comes from. Now, as far as I can see in our culture, we are encouraged to think more along the lines of a potato peeler. So we're told to look within ourselves. We're told to look at what makes us special. We're told to look at our gifts and our abilities. And we're told that there's a hero within us. And we're constantly being told you can achieve whatever you want to achieve and pursue your dreams, and you can be anything you want to be. And we're told the message that our value comes from ourselves and what we manage to achieve with our lives. Now, of course, that's all well and good, but it does have problems because when I look inside me, there's some stuff that I really don't like. Actually, I'm often frustrated and disappointed with myself. And I struggle to value what I find within me sometimes. And what about when I fail? It's very difficult to cope with failure. It's very difficult to cope with mediocrity and being average if we're all supposed to be special and valuable. And by very definition of things, most of us are going to be average. I mean, that's sort of the way average works. And so if our value comes from something within us, we are putting ourselves under huge pressure and stress. I want to present a different view of humanity and what it means to be human. I want to present the view that you find in the Bible. A narrative, a story of humanity, which I think makes amazing sense of our own experience and what we see around us. And actually is a story in which we can find true hope. So let me take you through the story. There's 3 stages to this story. And the first stage is that humanity is created with great value. In the first couple of pages of the Bible, we discover that human beings do not simply come out of some slimy soup and evolve over billions of years. No, humanity is created by God, handmade by God, created with great value. And in the same way that those canvases took their value from their artist, from their maker, from Banksy, so this world takes its value from the fact it was made by a great God. And human beings in particular are made with extraordinary honor and privilege. The Bible describes human beings like this: we are created in the image of God. That is, that we reflect something of God to our world. We share something of His glory and likeness. That's an amazing thing to say. What enormous dignity God has placed in humanity. That's the first stage in this story that the Bible tells. Created with great value. But of course, we all know that there's more to being human than that. And that's where it comes to this feeling that when we look inside, we find, yes, things that we love, but also things that we find frustrating. And the second thing we need to say in this story of humanity is that we are spoiled by a great rebellion. You see, the storyline of the Bible is not that human beings worshipped and loved the God who made them, but instead human beings turned away from the God who made them and turned to their own ways and were spoiled. You are probably too young to remember vinyls, although actually they are making a bit of a resurgence, so perhaps you're enjoying the second wave of vinyl renaissance. But when I was a teenager, I listened to all my music on vinyls. It was terrific. You got a brand new vinyl, you got it out of its sleeve, and you put it on the record player, and you listened to the beautiful music. And it was great until a vinyl got scratched. And when it got a whacking great scratch in it, suddenly the music was spoiled. Now, the interesting thing is you could still hear the music. You could still hear the original tune, but it was spoiled by the noise running right through it. And the Bible says something similar about human beings. That yes, we are created in the image of God, but we have been spoiled because we turned away from Him. There's a sentence in the Bible that says, "There is no one righteous, not even one." It says that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And so the reality of human beings is that we have both this value, but also this scratch. So you can still see something of the image of God in people. I see it all around me. I see people who show extraordinary love and kindness and gentleness. I see people who perform amazing works of art. And you see something of the image of God, but all the time it's spoiled. Because I also see wickedness and selfishness and evil. And I don't just see it out there, I see it in here. And ultimately, this rebellion has meant that we are people who are going to die. Yeah, the image of God is still there, but it's been spoiled. And that makes sense of our experience of life in this world. That's why I value humanity, but also get so frustrated by humanity, because we have this double identity. Valuable but spoiled. But there is a third part to the story of humanity in the Bible. And that is the story of redemption. Creation spoiled by rebellion, but redemption. You see, God has a plan for this people that he's made. And his plan is to heal the scratch. His plan is to put things right. What Humpty Dumpty, all the king's horses and all the king's men could not do for Humpty Dumpty, God is doing for humanity. God is redeeming humanity. But it comes at a great cost. And so here is the genius of God's plan. Here is the great climax to the story of humanity. God, the Creator God, became a human being, became a man. And he lived the perfect human life. You read the life of Jesus and you discover there are no scratches. There is only beauty. And so you see in Jesus the beauty of love and mercy and forgiveness and gentleness, but also truth and integrity and faithfulness. Here is the perfect life. Jesus shows us what it means to be truly human, the unscratched life. But he does more than just come as a role model. He came to experience human life in all its fullness and even to go to a cross and die. Do you remember I said that part of the great rebellion means that we die? It is God's punishment on our world. But when Jesus came and lived this perfect life, he faced death not for his own wrong, but for ours. And Jesus, when he died, he did what was necessary to redeem us, to begin to put us right. So there's a sentence in the Bible that says Jesus gave himself to redeem us from all wickedness and to purify for himself a people that are his very own, eager to do what is good. Do you hear the language? Redemption. So created with great value, spoiled by a great rebellion, redeemed at a great cost. And that means that to be truly human means that in Jesus we can begin to experience it again. Jesus came to bring us back to the God that we've rebelled against. Jesus came to give us life to the full. And in Jesus we even find hope in the face of death. But that's next week. You have to join us next time for Globe Connect Session 3 in order to hear about the hope in the face of death. But for today, I want us just to think about this story that the Bible tells. Creation, spoiled, redeemed. And I want to ask, does that make sense of what you see? Does that fit your experience of what it means to be human? Both the great value, but also the great frustration that we feel. If God has sent his Son so that we could be redeemed, we need to listen. To go on ignoring him, to go on rebelling against him would be sheer foolishness and outright rebellion. So I want to encourage you to discover whether this is true. If this story of humanity is true, it is the greatest story ever told, and it is the best news you will ever hear. So think about it. Read about it. Discover more. Ask your questions. Argue with it. Push it. And perhaps even find this life for yourself.